The first expansion to the Dungeons & Dragons 2024 rule set are officially here. Adventures in Faerun and Heroes of Faerûn, two massive new books on how to run a full campaign in the official Forgotten Realms, but it also gives us a full-on expansion to the core rulebooks. Even says right here on the covers, look, Dungeons Masters expansion and Players expansion. Thanks to my local game shop, I was actually able to get my hands on these two books very early, and I've studied them like there's a test worth my entire grade coming up. I've read both of these books cover to cover more than once, and I'm here to officially give my overall thoughts on it. My last video, I actually did that already on the Adventures of Faerun book right here, where I went through the entire book and gave an overall review, impression, and final score at the end. You can check it out in the link in my bio here, or just go to my channel and find it, but this video we're looking at the Players expansion being Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerûn. Now, I will be going through every single chapter in this book here, showing you some of the art that's inside, what's in each chapter, but I won't show everything. I'll show you overall what stood out to me and things I liked, and by the end of this video you have an idea of exactly what you to expect if you were to buy this book. If it's worth buying, and I will give a final score at the end, of course, as well. Oh, and I guess I should probably mention, if you are new here, I should introduce myself. Ahoy, I'm the D&D Hunter, a normal, everyday human man with human hands. I'm definitely not a mind flayer disguised with a fake mustache and illusion spells making my hands look more normal and masculine and giving me stuff like fingernails and... That's crazy, okay? That's crazy. I make Dungeons & Dragons videos every single week on tips, tricks, and ideas for your characters and your campaigns. In this video, we're breaking down and reviewing everything in the new Players expansion, so let's jump into it. I just want to start off by pointing out these covers again. For both of these books, I went with the Dominic Mayer variant covers. They're just so nice, and they're connecting covers too, which is really sweet. The official covers are still awesome, but I just love this look and style of these variants. Heroes of Faerûn has 6 chapters, so 2 less than Adventures, and it's slightly shorter as well, which is kind of common to expect for a Player's book versus a Dungeon Master's book, as this is an extension to the 2024 Player's Handbook. Chapter 1 is character options, going over extra details on the 2024 species, as well as brand new subclasses and some background information. Chapter 2 is a guide to the realms of Faerûn. Chapter 3 is a finally in-depth guide at the Dungeons & Dragons gods. Chapter 4 is information on wares and equipment of locations described in the Dungeon Masters expansion Adventures in Faerûn. Number 5 is new spells and information on circle magic. And chapter 6 is a massive chapter on Realms factions. We start this book with an introduction featuring some absolutely stunning art of a drow and their familiar speaking with the newly designed Spirit Dragon, the same one from Adventures in Faerûn. In the background, a Pegasus soars by with golden birds, which could be a Bahamut-related Easter egg. Judging by the archway in the distance, the scene takes place somewhere in the Dale Lands, which I completely covered in my Adventures of Faerûn video. The introduction itself is actually pretty short and mostly just explains what's inside this book, setting the stage for everything that's soon to follow. Chapter 1 is all on character options. We start off by revisiting the 10 core species chosen in the 2024 Player's Handbook. This section goes over each one in a lot more detail, giving us extra lore, extra culture, and the world context of how they fit into Faerûn. For example, the Aasimars are described as rare beings with no true homeland, wandering the realms as divine-born outsiders, while others, like the best of them all, being the dwarves, tend to stick together in their grand fortress like cities and underground strongholds. Dwarves are my favorite species to play in Dungeons & Dragons. I actually found it a bit odd how in the 2024 Player's Handbook, the different species write-ups were a lot shorter compared to the 5th edition Player's Handbook species, or I guess they're called race there. This book fixes that in a lot of ways, as the entries here go into way more detail, giving each species much more information to help you choose which one you want to play as when you're making that character. You still won't find specific ability scores or stats, because that's now tied to backgrounds in this new edition, but all the variants are represented here. So sticking with the best species dwarfs here, we get detailed breakdowns on what separates each type, from the proud and traditional shield and gold dwarfs to the darker, grittier duergar. Each variant actually feels different now, with its own lore and sense of place in this world. This section also gives recommendations of how each of these variants live and behave in the world. So it's not just your usual surface level notes, it actually explores alternatives to the traditional lore. For example, it talks about how drow usually pray to Loth, the Spider Queen, but it also explains what life would be like for ones that don't do that. These drow are described as living peaceful lives away from the Underdark and on the surface, but still close enough that they can reach the Underdark when needed, but far enough away to escape its usual corruption. It's a nice touch that adds to the drow culture. Not every species here comes with a list of variants though. For some like Goliaths, we just get pure lore on just the Goliaths. It explains how some of them stay high in the mountains with their kin, while others feel the call to explore the wider world, leaving their clans behind in search for purpose, which would likely be what you would choose when you're playing a Goliath, because you can't just stick with your family, you gotta go on that adventure. The Orc section was also a standout to me, as it dives into the story of the Kingdom of Many Arrows and their ruler, Auroras Homebringer, who calls for the orcs across the realm to return to home. It's a really cool detail that could easily inspire a backstory if you were picking an orc. Like, you pick an orc whose character is torn between the call to adventure or their duty to return to their people as Auroras is calling them home. After this, we get into new and returning subclasses. I won't go through each detail on how they work, but I do want to point out what each of these new subclasses are. The first subclass we get into is a bard subclass called the College of the Moon. To quote the book, the College of the Moon traces its origin to the ancient druidic circles of the Moonshae Islands, who entrusted the first bards of this tradition with chronicling stories and islands of their people. Bards of this college draw from the island's fey magic and primal power of the Moonwells to bolster their allies and protect the natural world that inspire their bardic works. So yeah, this bard is deeply tied to the nature and fey magic of the Moonshae Islands, which I went into a lot in my Adventures of Faerun video. This part isn't really about showmanship and music, it's more so focused on stuff like harmony, balance, and basically just storytelling with the moon's light. Next up is a cleric subclass called the Knowledge of Domain, which is a returning favorite that's been updated with new lore and new information. The Knowledge Domain values learning and understanding above all. Clerics who tap into this domain study exotic lore, collect old tomes, and delve into secret places. They examine the process of the mind. To them, knowledge is more valuable than materials, wealth, and learning is an act of worship to them. I really like how this version emphasizes both the divine and academic sides of knowledge. I feel like oftentimes when we see like book smart characters, they're mostly just wizards, but clerics can read books too. I mean, these ones do at least. The book also connects the domain directly into Faerun's deities of learning invention like Ogma and Gond, showing that this subclass can easily tie into the world's lore and institution, and these are two gods that you can pick that they pray to if you choose this subclass. The Banneret returns as a fighter subclass, and it's written as much more purpose this time around. Bannerets are paragons of valor and leadership who protect the innocent and rally fellow adventurers in cause of justice and freedom. Many are knights, serving the Cormyr, the Silver Marches, the Damara, the Chesenta, or other lands of Faerun. They wander their realms as knights, errant, taking the fight against evil beyond their kingdom's borders. So they're like traveling fighters here. I really like that this book grounds the subclass to the culture of Faerun still though, referencing places like Cormyr and the Silver Marches, which immediately helps any fighter feel tied into this world. Mechanically, the Banneret has always been about teamwork and inspiration, but the new write-up kind of makes it feel more like a leader. Someone who turns a small group of heroes into a true fighting force. Think of it like Aragon in the final battle in Return of the King. Next up, we've got a more creative subclass in this book, which is the Oath of Noble Genies for Paladins. Paladins swore the Oath of the Noble Genies referenced the forces of elemental planes. Through taking this oath, Paladins draw the power of the 4 different types of genies. Deo, Masters of the Earth, Jinn, Masters of the Air, Efreet, Masters of Fire, and Merits, Masters of Water. In Faerun, many Paladins who swear this oath hail from Kalimshan and are teaming with genies. Side note though, they don't have to hail from Kalimshan. You can hail from anywhere, because this is Dungeons and Dragons. I do love this concept though. It's a very different paladin subclass, because instead of swearing to a defined ideal or god, this oath connects them to elemental forces and literal genies. It's interesting that you're praying in a way to a genie for your power instead of someone like Bahamut. It sort of gives a mythic desert guardian type of style that we don't really see often in a paladin. Next up is Winterwalker, which is a new ranger subclass that's perfect for campaigns set in colder regions, but I will say it also works great in standard campaigns, not in colder regions too. When I first saw this subclass, I kind of thought this would only work in something like Icewind Dale or But that's not the case. Think of it more as like a frost-infused ranger using types of ice magic, both offensively and defensively. Winter walkers hone their craft in the bleak and frozen places like Icewind Dale, but it doesn't have to be. These ruthless rhymed rangers hunt monsters that haunt Arctic wastelands, eventually becoming frigid terrors themselves. Winter walkers are well versed in the phenomenal of the Icewind Dale, including the latent magic fallen in the Nethris cities, endemic monsters like yetis and cragcats. Due to their cold-like terrifying magic and mastery of the region, Winter walkers are regarded with equal parts fear and respect. Kinda sounds like a mix of ranger and warlock in one, although it is just ranger. I like this one a lot because it kind of ties Icewind Dale, giving you a sense of ancient haunting power, or you can make this tie into any winter area of your homebrew world. It's definitely a subclass that makes your ranger feel a bit more supernatural, a frozen force of nature that blurs the line between man and storm. Next is the Scion of the Three, a subclass that ties into the lore of Baldur's Gate, but can easily fit into any campaign if you want a rogue with a darker, curse-like edge. Because if there's one thing rogues need, it's to be a little bit more edgier, right? Am I right, fellas? A Scion of the Three draws power from a group of malevolent gods known in Baldur's Gate as the Dead Three. These gods are Bane, a god of tyranny, Baal, a god of violence and murder, and Myrkul, the god of death. While some rogues of the subclass pledge themselves to all of these three gods, others trust this path as a curse. Either way, a Scion's power manifests as various occult gifts, as well as an uncanny talent for striking terrifying foes. What I like about this is how flexible you can be with this, because you could lean fully into the cultist assassin vibe if you're running a campaign in Baldur's Gate or a city, or you could treat this more like a rogue cursed by dark gods. This can also sort of be like the resisting Dark Urge storyline in Baldur's Gate 3. For those that don't know, this is a story arc you can do where you have darkness within you, tempting you to kill, but you're trying to resist it at every chance you can. Think of it like a black suit Spider-Man, if you haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. Next is Spellfire Sorcery, which might be one of the coolest introductions in this book because it brings back Spellfire, one of the most legendary forms of magic in the Forgotten Realms lore. Your innate power stems from the source of magic itself, which is the Weave, which I'll go over in a few minutes here. This connection manifests as a rare ability known as Spellfire, and you surge with the radiant bursts of this raw magic. Your talent with Spellfire allows you to heal allies, see your enemies, and absorb powerful spells. In other words, this subclass basically lets you weaponize the Weave itself. There's even a chart here that shows different ways your Spellfire can look. Spellfire users could have been rare and dangerous, so that makes factions like Harpers or the Cult of the Dragon, maybe even Red Wizards too actually, go out of their way to recruit one. It's a perfect fit for a wandering chosen one or a runaway magical experiment, someone who barely understands the power they carry, but everyone else sure does understand it. Last but definitely not least is the Blade Singer for Wizards, a returning favorite that's just as elegant as it was before. Blade Singers master the tradition of wizardry that incorporates swordplay and dance. In combat, a Blade Singer uses intricate, elegant maneuvers that fend off harm, allowing the Blade Singer to channel magic into devastating attacks and a cunning defense. It's one of the more striking subclasses in Dungeons & Dragons, part martial artist, part mage, and deeply rooted in elven history. This book actually explains how traditions trace back to ancient realms like Myth-Drannor and still carries the same grace and prestige. Think of this like that Skyrim build you once tried between your many stealth archer runs. Sword in one hand, destruction magic in the other. That's it for the subclasses. Next in this same chapter here is backgrounds. Backgrounds are where a majority of skills and proficiency come from now. The 2024 rules no longer give species that because it all comes from your background. This book has 18 brand new backgrounds to choose from, region-based backgrounds and faction-based backgrounds. I'm saying the word backgrounds a lot, my gosh. Going through all these backgrounds that could be a whole video on its own. So we're just gonna name them all here and you guys will see what the art looks like. Trondathan Firebooter, Dead Magic Dweller, Dragon Cultist, which is my personal favorite in this list, Emerald Enclave Caretaker, Flaming Fist Mercenary, Genie Touched, actually that might be my favorite, Harper Agent, Ice Fisher, Knight of the Gauntlet, Lord's Alliance Vessel, Moonwell Pilgrim, Ohorandi Tomb Raider, Mythal Keeper, Purple Dragon Squire, Rasami Wanderer, Shadowmaster's Exile, Spellfire Initiate, and finally, the Zentarum Mercenary. You know what I sound like there? I sound like that one ad that Dwayne Johnson did for Black Adam where he's just naming superheroes. The Flash, Wonder Woman.
Shazam, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman.
That's a reference that, well, that's a reference, all right. Each one of these ties your character into a region of a powerful faction with the Forgotten Realms, helping to ground each of them in Faerun lore right from level 1. We get a lot of new origin feats and boons here. The boons here are specifically epic boons, which means you gotta be at least level 19 or 20 to get them. Which also means nobody will ever get these because who's getting to level 19 in a campaign nowadays? Either your campaign ends at around 13 to 16 level or it ends because drama, am I right? Jokes aside though, I do like how we get a focus on the high level experience here because we don't get that often. It's very overlooked, probably due to how rare it is outside of one-shots. I won't spoil what these boons and feats are specifically though, because we're still on chapter 1? Okay, let's move on to chapter 2. Chapter 2 is a guide to the realms, and it kicks off with one of my favorite sequences in any Dungeons & Dragons books ever, which is the calendar system. I know that's weird, but it's one of my favorite parts of D&D. I just love D&D having a calendar, and I love that we're finally getting more attention to it. This one was already touched in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, but here it's expanded, going deeper into its 365 days in a year, each month, each holiday that happens through the year. We even get a full timeline of events in D&D lore leading up to the current year, which is 1501 DR, the year of the Shining Mythal. I have a bit of an, I guess you could call it obsession with the Dungeons & Dragons calendars and holidays. I went on a deep dive covering everything I could find officially and made a video on it, which you can check out right here. It's like in my bio. But it's really nice to have updated, official, and now easily accessible information on the calendar of heart posts in this book. We finally track days a lot easier in D&D time. Now, I've only had a printable version that we could just hang on a wall. We get a look at the regions of Faerun that come with a map of the land color-coded into different sections of the regions. This sort of reminds me of those maps that highlight provinces you would see in every classroom in Canada. We also get an updated language chart, something I found to be used often in the 5th edition Player's Handbook. It's expanded though now to include different region-based languages, but rather than just species-based languages. Like we get languages like Bothi and Iluskan. Still no alphabet text chart though, which was really cool to have in the 5th edition Player's Handbook. I'm a bit disappointed that we didn't get that here. I found myself using this often to write certain things that involve puzzles and dungeons and stuff, but yeah, I really wish they included that here. After the map and language chart, we get what is basically a social studies textbook on Faerun. Each region has a full overview packed with lore, noteworthy information, and a general layout. Unlike the Adventures of Faerun book, which organizes regions into 5 sections with adventure hooks and ideas for gameplay, this section is purely informational. It's written as straight up lore, giving you all the context you would ever need about these lands themselves. There's a lot to this, and I mean a lot. Altogether, there's 46 pages of just pure regional information. It's wild to see how much detail is in one book, and it's great if you like having a comprehensive understanding of your world that your game is set in, although I will admit, it feels like a lot. It's a little overwhelming, and it's something that I find a lot of players would probably skim over just to get to the next chapter, which is chapter 3. My favorite chapter in this book, the gods of Faerun, finally! Seriously though, we've had clerics who get their powers through gods, paladins who get their powers through gods, warlocks who get their powers through patrons, I guess. A full skill dedicated to rolling religion, yet where do we get these gods' informations from? A basic list in the back of the old Player's Handbook. This annoyed me so much, I made a whole video dedicated to telling people to try and use gods more and where you can find god information because this just wasn't cutting it. Dungeons & Dragons God have so much lore, history, and it's to the point that the gods wiki pages are massive, but some of the gods wiki pages are also so small. So this new chapter finally gives us information and lore and details on all, well not all, but 42 gods. Praise be. Before the book dives into the gods themselves though, this chapter actually gives us some really important context and explains what gods actually are, what happens to gods as they die, and how new gods are made. We also get stunning artwork here, like this one here of Selûne and Shar, showing just how awe-inspiring the divine can really look. It goes into religious institutions, temples, shrines, and priesthoods that maintain them. And it gives insight to how divine magic works, like the powers your cleric wields. We also learn about the chosen individuals, which are mortals picked by deities for a specific purpose. Gortash from Baldur's Gate 3 is a prime example of this concept in action, and he's even straight up used as an example in this book as we get art of him right here. Now look at this. Look at this. Finally, we have actual information, lore, and purpose of the gods of Dungeons and Dragons. We get to learn who these gods are, what they serve, what they're here for, and we even finally get official symbols for all of them. Some of these are old symbols, but some of them are updated, and some of them are even completely new. Check out Soluna's symbol right here. It's way more detailed and feels a bit more full and complete than it was before. This makes me actually want to play a cleric just so I can study these gods and decide which one I want to follow in a campaign. Or maybe I should, you know what, yeah. Stay tuned next week. My next video is going to be going all over these gods in well detail and depth because there's so much to this and I just want to yap all about all of them. So stay tuned. Moving on to Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is, whoa. Chapter 4 is Aurora's Whole Realm Catalog.
Welcome to Aurora's Whole Realms Catalog. My great-grandmother founded this business over a century ago, providing adventuring gear and tools of the trade to discerning clients across Faerun. It is my privilege to carry on in her famous footsteps.
Thank you, Aurora.
You're welcome.
You know that section in the player's handbook with like tools and adventuring gear? This is that, but expanded a lot. And you can see from the start of this chapter, it has a pretty much unique look to it. This section features a lot of art of the gear with gold next to it, and it shows how much it costs, and damn! A black coach ride is just 1 gold? That seems really cheap. Actually, a lot of these items feel pretty low cost. This either shows that I charge too much in my games or I'm way too generous with gold, because wow, these prices are pretty reasonable. As you can see here in this art, we've got themed items based on different locations featured in the Adventures of Faerun. Each one fits the region it comes from, and the pages that follow give sort of short descriptions of what they actually do. For example, these genie robes here give you advantage on ability checks made to influence elementals. Pretty stylish and practical. Meanwhile, the locking spellbook can, well, it's a spellbook that locks. Yeah, the name sort of explains itself there. There's a lot more to it, but Chapter 4 in general is short, but it's sweet. Chapter 5 is the Magic of Faerun. Here we get brand new spells and informations on how to cast circle magic. But before we even get to that, the book actually explains, actually explains how D&D magic. Straight up. How it works, where it comes from, how it flows through the weave. Something that's always kind of been there in Dungeons & Dragons, but never really well detailed in a way that feels tangible. So this is pretty refreshing to see how the rules take a second to dive into what magic is in Dungeons & Dragons. Here's a quote from the book. From the simplest cantrip to the mightiest working of high magic, from a crumbled curse wound spell to the raising ability of mighty heroes from the dead. Magic premates the realms. Yeah, this section dives deep into the weave, which is essentially the invisible fabric that holds all magic together. It's what connects spellcasters, monsters, even divine miracles. Like the Force in Star Wars, I guess. I love that they take time to explain all this and how it works. It gives context to why a beholder can just exist and what it does. Straight up, this is really impressive stuff. It's short, it's readable, and it ties together decades of history into something you can easily understand as a player or dungeon master. Really impressive stuff here. From here we go over the 5 types of magic in Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm not talking about schools like conjuration, necromancy, illusion, all that stuff. These are categories based on how they interact with the weave itself. Magic items, being the first one, are basically vessels of the weave. They hold and channel pieces of it. The new Spellfire is described as literal raw magic, the weave in its purest, most chaotic form. Then there's wild magic and dead magic, which are like frayed or broken strands of the weave. Wild magic bursts and mutates unpredictably, while dead magic zones just kind of turn it off entirely. No spells, no items, nothing. High magic is ancient and awe-inspiring, so early in the discovery of the weave that it often requires multiple spellcasters working together. This is the kind of magic that can heal entire armies or level entire cities. Then we get mythals. The book calls them less like spells and more like living creatures of magic themselves. That is so cool. It's basically a sentient spell that can alter realities across an entire region. I've never heard of Mythos before reading this, but now that I've read it, my Dungeons Master mind is going crazy with ideas and possibilities of how I can use this in my own campaigns. Every location in Faerun with a myth in its name, like Myth Draenor or Myth Nantar, actually has a mythol protecting it. Just imagine how that can look in your campaign. Next up, we've got Circle Magic. Circle Magic was originally developed by ancient elven mages who wanted to cast spells beyond what one person could do. Eventually, places like Thay and Reshimen rediscovered the technique, and it spread across Faerun, letting multiple spellcasters pool their power into a single, massively enhanced spell. So, here's how it works. When you cast a spell as a circle spell, you're the primary caster, the main one handling components, concentration, and effects. But you need one or more secondary caster to help channel this magic. They have to be within 30 feet of you, and they must either have the spellcasting or pact magic feature. Together, you all use your turns to maintain the casting. If it's an instant spell, the magic happens once everyone's contributed. If it takes a minute or longer, everyone has to keep concentration the entire time, and if anyone drops concentration, the whole spell fails. Luckily, if it does fail, you don't lose spell spots or components. Now, circle magic isn't really just about teamwork, it actually gives you special circle casting options that completely change how the spell behaves. There are 6 of these options, and each one lets you tweak magic in a unique way. This is Augment, which lets you dramatically increases the spell's range by 1,000 feet per helper up to a mile. Distribute, which lets everyone share concentration. As long as one person keeps it up, the spell keeps running. Expand, which increases the spell's area of effect, bigger radius, longer line, that kind of thing. Prolong, which extends the spell's duration potentially up to a full day if enough casters join in. Safeguard lets you carve out a safe zone inside your areas of spells, basically letting you fireball a battlefield without hitting your party. And Supplement, which reduces the cost of an expansive material component, which, my god, this is incredible for things like Revivify or Raise Dead. Imagine when your player character dies, the cleric runs over and uses circle magic with another spellcaster to cast Revivify, using that diamond to bring them back to life. But afterwards, you get to keep the diamond in case this happens again. Overall, circle magic is one of those systems that adds a lot of mechanical depth. It feels ancient, it feels powerful, and it's also flexible and easy to plug into real campaigns. Whether you're a dungeon master wanting to create an epic scale moment, or a player who loves the teamwork heavy spellcasting, circle magic might be one of the most exciting additions in Heroes of Faerûn, and it was hyped a lot before this book even released. 19 new spells are also added here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are new ones here that are very cool, like the Blades of Disaster, which is a crazy 9th level conjuration spell where you summon like an extremely powerful 3-foot buster sword. Or there's a spell called Death Armor, which is a level 2 necromancy spell, which creates a venom-like armor on someone, giving them advantages on death saves, and also dealing a bit of necrotic damage if someone attacks them. Really awesome stuff overall. Chapter 6 is the last chapter in Heroes of Faerûn, and also the longest. It's all about the factions of the realms. Here's how the book describes them. Many heroes in Faerûn seek power and prosperity, but few can achieve this ambition alone. Instead, individuals join influential groups called factions. Adventurers who join a faction stand to gain honor, privileges, wealth, and above all, respect. Each faction has its own vision for Faerûn, and those goals don't always align. When the factions clash, rivalries form. When one faction becomes too strong, others may band together to keep them all in balance. Occasionally, these rivalries can even lead to alliances, though they're rarely official. The book goes into detail on the main factions, including the Cult of the Dragon, which are Doomslayers creating Dracoliches and accelerating apocalyptic events. The Emerald Enclave, which are druids and survivalists maintaining balance between nature and civilization. The Harpers, which are Skalds, spies, and secret agents seeking a peaceful Faerûn. The Lord's Alliance, which is a collation of cities in western Faerûn striving for prosperity. The Order of the Gauntlet is zealous warriors dedicated to smiting evil whenever it appears. The Purple Dragon Knights, which are Cormyre's elite forces, often bonded with Amethyst Dragons to fight evil. It's cool that we're bringing back Amethyst Dragons. I like the Gemstone Dragons a lot. The Red Wizards, which are powerful mages from Thay seeking arcane mastery and ancient artifacts. This was also the main villains of the Dungeons & Dragons movie. And the Zentarims, which are factions where greed and ambition are celebrated in pursuit of fortune. Each faction also comes with a special facility that can be added to your bastion, giving mechanical and narrative benefits. The book even includes a chart of faction relationships showing which factions are allies, rivals, or indifferent to each other. This adds a layer of depth for storytelling, intrigue, and player involvement in the politics of Faerun. Overall, this chapter is massive. It's the biggest one in this book. It's a toolkit for dungeon masters and players to intrigue factions into their campaign meaningfully, whether this is for roleplay, intrigue, or adventure hooks. I would be curious to see which of these factions is joined the most by players, because from here the chapter goes into each faction, one at a time, giving you details like the description, their goals, and their leadership, recruitments, and special locations in Faerun, where you can find them, what each faction means, and how you can leave them once joined, because some don't take that lightly. Once you're in, you might be stuck. We get a renown system, which was in the location areas of the adventure book, but now is specific to the players. This includes character growth within the factions. You can give renown points that can add up to multiple different tiers. For example, the Harpers let you stay in any Harper stronghold if you have 3 renown points. 25 renown points gets you that silver Harper's pin, which is described in the Adventurer's Handbook, and it's the same Harper's pin you see Chris Pine's character Edgin get in his origin story in Honor Among Thieves. Depending on what faction you choose comes with its own rewards, like this look at the armor you can get if you join the Order of the Gauntlet, or the specific quests that only members of the Purple Dragon Knights can be assigned. You can even be given special tasks that I didn't even think was possible in Dungeons & Dragons. The game where anything is possible. Such as not only gaining these Theon Red Wizards tattoos if you rank high enough in the Red Wizards, but you can also learn how to ink these tattoos into others. From there, the book said, we're not done yet. We went through all these factions and the information, but we're also going to give you smaller syndicates. These are groups that you can find in Dungeons & Dragons, not necessarily join, at least not in detail that the book gives you. These are syndicates like the Fire Knives Assassins, the Shadow Thieves, the Kraken Society, and a lot more smaller groups. And finally, the book ends with a full map of Faerun, perfect for hanging on your wall or set straight on your game table when you play in the Forgotten Realms. And if you flip this over, oh my god, you get it. Yes, finally, a full calendar. Hell yeah, dude, I am 100% using this in my next campaign. I'm talking crossing out the days when times pass, planning festivals, tracking seasons, writing down every player's birthday coming up, and so much more. Oh my god, it's the small things that matter, man. This is the kind of additions that I love to see in my D&D books that I pay my money for. And that's the Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerûn book. An overall massive player's extension, perfect for, well, being a hero to Faerun. Keep in mind this is Dungeons & Dragons, so you can still bring all these Faerun related stuff to a fully homebrew world. This book gives us new spells, new items, backgrounds, subclasses, feats, boons, extension on lore on things like specific locations and regions, and overall a great new well-documented stuff like circle magic and faction joining. You can extend your D&D sessions with so much more you can do here, and the Gods chapter is my favorite thing in the whole world. I can't wait to dive deep into this in my next video. I do have one complaint. Chapter 2 starts with that amazing calendar and language information, but after that we really dive into the locations, which, don't get me wrong, is cool, but how it's handled feels like a studied textbook. It's just way too much information at once, when all the other stuff in this book is more so simplified and exciting. Yes, we need this lore to be expansive, but when you look at these maps, they just have way more text and locations than the description gives you following it. It just feels a little overwhelming. Like I said, I read it all, so maybe this is more of just a dumb nitpick of mine, but I feel like this section was only here to help fill this book. It feels like it would be more at home in the Adventures of Faerûn Dungeons Masters expansion, rather than the Player's expansion. But that book is already larger than this one, so it's here instead. Again, maybe that's like a super unpopular opinion of mine, but I just had to say it. Overall, this book is amazing. I love it. As a forever DM, it makes me want to play a character again. Making a character in Faerûn is now full of potential, and everything about this book, besides that one part I just complained about, is really cool. Overall, I give Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerûn a 9 out of 10. Ooh, that was a long video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I spent a lot of time on these sort of book reviews, but my next videos are going to be on tips, tricks, and ideas for your Dungeon Masters games. If you liked my little review videos here like this one, or if you watched my last one, let me know and I'll do it on the next book to come out. I tend to buy every single Dungeons & Dragons official book that releases. I really like having these on my shelf, and I use a lot of them just in general. With that being said, I gotta get to work on the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the love and support and all the comments you guys give. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.